This NewsTalk 1010 podcast is brought to you by PocketEmploymentLawyer.ca. Wrongfully dismissed, changes made to your job, lowballed on severance? Find out if you have a case before you call a lawyer. Go to PocketEmploymentLawyer.ca.
If you're getting divorced and you and your ex were in the process, of course, with COVID-19, a lot of courts closed down, which means there's a huge backlog. Well, if you're getting divorced, it might cost you a little bit more post-COVID-19. Joining us now is Laura Paris. She's an associate lawyer with Shulman Partners LLP. Laura, welcome to the Nightside. Why will it cost more to get divorced after COVID-19?
So what people are starting to see is that if you did kind of start your process, your divorce process, or were separated prior to COVID-19, what a lot of people are facing now is that there's actually been a downturn in their assets or in their income. So what's happening is that when we look to assess, equalization, which is property division, or we look at support, we're looking at those numbers as of the date of separation. So when you factor in COVID,
right,
and you factor in the downturns in the market, job losses, etc., what ends up happening is that people are now being expected to pay on amounts that either A, they aren't currently earning, or assets that they don't have anymore. So it's creating more complexity in cases, which ultimately results in greater legal fees and more expense in getting divorced.
Laura Paris is with us. So what is the answer to that? How do husbands and wives and those that no longer want to be husbands and wives, is there a way to bring down that cost or reset it? How do they do that?
So there's a couple of things we can do. The court absolutely has mechanisms that allows you to use kind of a discretionary or a reasonability approach when you're dealing with these issues. Now, anything going through court is obviously going to be a little bit more on the expensive side. So in order to cut costs for our clients, number one, what we're encouraging right now is for people to be very solution-oriented and realistic about what is currently going on. If you see that, on January 1st, your assets were $100,000, and then as of April 1st, they've dropped down to $20,000, you can't expect that a payment of $50,000 is going to come your way. That's not realistic, and it's not reasonable, and it's likely that the ultimate conclusion, if you were to bring it to a court, is that the court's going to give some relief given the downturn in the market. So it's really a matter of being realistic and solution-oriented and realizing that it's not worth dragging these things out through court. We're already dealing with a pandemic, which is stressful enough on people, and then to add a separation in the midst of that, you want to get it done as soon as you reasonably can. So being solution-oriented is definitely one of the main things that we suggest in reducing costs. The other thing is that there's alternate methods that you can use, such as mediation or arbitration, before resorting to something like court, which is a lot more efficient of a process and doesn't end up costing as much money.
Laura, you're dealing with husbands and wives who want to be divorced. With the pandemic, has anyone cooled down and fallen back in love? Or are people like, no, we can't get this divorce fast enough, get this through as quickly as possible?
You know what, you're definitely seeing both sides of the spectrum. So what we've noticed at our firm is that actually after COVID-19, our calls in terms of consultations have gone up 40%. Now, what we're noticing in these consultations that we're having is that there's some people that had pre-existing issues prior to COVID, that COVID just exacerbated these issues and brought them to the point that they cannot deal with it anymore. Then there's the people that COVID was the onset of issues in their relationship. And when you start to explain to them the process, the cost of the process, not only financially but emotionally, sometimes that encourages people to go back and say, hey, you know what, I think it might be easier to try and work on this than to give up.
Fascinating stuff. Laura Paris, associate lawyer at Shulman Partners LLP. Laura, appreciate your time tonight.
Thank you so much.
So there you go. If you're thinking about being divorced, you might need to make sure that your assets value is reset from pre-COVID-19 if it's changed drastically. Also on top of that, you might just want to try and settle out of court because it'll be a little bit faster and save you some money. I don't know if people can do that. Sometimes they get angry. Maybe the COVID's given them time to cool down.
This NewsTalk 1010 podcast was brought to you by PocketEmploymentLawyer.ca. Wrongfully dismissed, changes made to your job, lowballed on severance? Find out if you have a case before you call a lawyer. Go to PocketEmploymentLawyer.ca.